scheduled for May 31 through June 3rd. So if I get there on May 30th, I guess I'm gonna have a room for that night in the college dorms or what?
Yeah, no, if you like, it's a day early or something, 30th, or
Yeah, well, I mean, like the conference starts May 31st, so obviously you would probably get there May 30th so that you could stay the night and wake up.
exactly. And we've asked if we can get rooms on the day before, because for some reason Declan was like, "Oh, really? Do you want that?" I'm like, "Yeah." I want to get there a day early. I can't just go on a Thursday and do a flight and travel and whatnot and expect to still get that thing ready by the end of the afternoon. No, that's just not possible.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, what time on that Thursday, the 31st, what time do things start?
All right. Officially, we start at the end of the afternoon. So something like 5-ish in the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I like to get somewhere, get settled, understand where I'm at, where I need to.
Yeah, just let us know if you wanna come straight to the venue on Wednesday. We'll be there at the end of that day at least, and checking into the hotel / dorm rooms already.
Gotcha.
So you're welcome to join us. We have a few others that are not actually officially part of our team that are also coming a day early because they're traveling with us, basically.
Oh, yeah. And Peter, I'm not going to be getting in until later in the evening on the 31st.
Right. So okay, let's see. Well, the 31st is always meant, like the Thursday is always meant for that. We have, we keep all the room keys, etc., in a central place, so that if they shut down for some reason, like the official reception, the people that actually live there and go home, that we just take over from them.
Okay.
And so we'll make sure you have a room. The only, I mean, if you are going to show up at like 2 a.m., it'd be good to give a heads up.
That would be that late.
No. So the latest we had was, I think, was Kahal once, who showed up at like 2 or 3 a.m. But yeah, there's always people in the bar.
Shriba, how you doing, sir?
All right. I heard all the cool kids hang on to this technology meeting, so I thought I'd stop in and say hi here. So
We appreciate you joining. Sean and Mitchell and I had been emailing yesterday, but he did not say if he was going to show up for this meeting. And typically we kind of, for the first couple of minutes, just hang on and let people join from everywhere. People come in and out. But Andy, I know your time is valuable here and you don't have much of it. So
actually what is useful right now, if there's any logistical questions for DNN Connect, we just came back from the venue, so that's what everyone was doing right now, asking questions about what time can we arrive and whatnot.
Great. How's the venue? This is your first time there, right?
Yeah, first time we're doing it at Ireland at this venue. The rooms are, let's say, the central auditorium is a bit big, so we're going to have to encourage people to sit at the front. But the breakout rooms are fantastic. They're like, there's a couple that are in like small amphitheater setting, everything. It looks really, really great. So we've never had it that luxurious yet. We're looking at getting a full recording for all sessions, so that we can post those to YouTube afterwards. In terms of food, drink, that seems to be rolling. We had a look at the different sites that we're using. Nothing there that was alarming. The rooms look good. They're not huge. They're student dorm rooms. They're not overly big, but if you spend too much time in the room, you're doing something wrong.
Peter, are you trying to make me actually buy a converter that doesn't work in the U.S. for this?
Good question about the converter. You need a plug. Those British plugs are a nightmare if you're coming with anything else. You can't pry anything else into it. So So you need one of those adapters. And they are, it's 230 there, so 230 volt. So if your laptop can't switch that, then you're going to have to get something.
So brute force doesn't work, Peter?
I tried it. But
the big prongs is
exactly.
Jam it in, right?
Exactly. One of my favorite YouTube channels, of course, the Electro Boom guy. I don't know if any of you guys know him, like that blows up all this stuff doing that kind of things. So yeah, that's.
Peter, I saw an email going around about a potential keg sponsor. Is that also true?
Yeah, there is. Well, that we used to have kind of funny names in that respect for the sponsorship, where the lowest was 500, and we called it keg sponsorship. Later on, we figured that was not going to be we couldn't one-on-one match it to kegs, so.
Well, I was just saying, I think the Blue Bolt guy CC'd me on it. He's like, have another beer on us.
Oh, the Blue Bolt guys came through big time. They are sponsoring one level higher even, and excusing themselves, saying sorry we can't make it, but love to be there. Hope to be there next year. So put it this way, they're sponsoring, and we're already committed to doing an event next year.
All right, great. And how many people y'all expecting?
So we are currently approaching 100 attendees. We are confident we're gonna make the 100, and that was basically, anything above that for us is awesome. It's above expectation.
Great.
So
well, I'm super excited. I've never been up there either, so I'm certainly excited to get up there, have a couple of pints with y'all.
Check the weather forecast briefly before, and otherwise bring an umbrella. It's the British Isles. They tend to get a bit rainy at times.
Yeah. There's a reason why people are pale up there. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, we did all rejoice when we saw the sun once. So we're like, oh, there it is.
Right.
A big yellow ball in the sky. It worked. So
and if anybody's in for a Jameson whiskey factory tour, I'm definitely going to put that on the agenda.
Yeah,
in Dublin.
That's supposed to be good. That's supposed to be good.
All right. Oh, I love it. Absolutely. So
yeah.
Awesome. And then if I think they scheduled the talk, so if there's specific topics that you guys want me to cover, I'm more than happy.
Well, I wanted to go through that with you. We're gonna finalize hopefully the schedule of sessions, or at least the sessions that are going to happen within a week. I'm just chasing down the last few presenters. We're going to fill up with a number of DNN Corp presentations. So, Clint is possibly on the hook about talking about community. I might ask Dennis Shaw to present something about liquid content, although it's a bit before that will happen, but it's never lost on our audience, I guess. And then, as to yourself, I'm assuming we're doing the opening, right? We're doing a keynote opening in the big room together, and we're also planning a Q&A session at some point, which we will pre-cook a little bit to make sure that there are no awkward silences or whatever. We'll have a bunch of questions already prepared, and make sure that whole thing goes fluid and gives a good impression of what we're doing.
Yeah, let me know. Happy to do whatever you guys want here. And do you guys find that there's a big overlap between the DNN Summit attendees and the DNN Connect attendees, or is it a pretty different crew?
There is a core group that goes to both events, definitely, from Europe and from the US. But it's not huge because not many Europeans can afford to go to DNN Summit.
Got it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I know.
Go ahead, Matt.
I know Andrew is short on time.
Yeah, exactly. Andy's short on time, so we've got to kick into his parts.
Yeah, that's That's what I was going to kind of get to. So I had asked Andy a couple of weeks ago if he could join this meeting, just for a brief segment. Doesn't have to sit through all the technical details, but when we were like having the conversation of, well, who's driving the ship? Is the community really empowered? Andy and I had a meeting, and we were discussing that, and I told him that I thought the group could benefit from hearing that message come from him. And so that's why he has joined us here for a little bit today, and then I think he'll probably jump off in a little bit. But with that said, Andy, if you want to basically tell the group what we've been saying, and then Andrew will roll into your segment.
Yeah, sure. No, I guess just real briefly, I think this has been pretty consistent and with what our actions are, which is probably even more important than the words coming out of our mouth. But we've been trying to very much go towards the big community, small DNN approach across the board, right? And if you look at, even the release that we had recently, I mean, it's all pretty much driven off of the community pull requests and what have you. And we want, even the technical direction in the whole 9 yards is for the community to really be driving that, and we are going to support that, versus the inverted model where there's some type of an approval-based approach that certain things are going to get denied and what have you. And I would say let's not do that at all. And I'm going to continue to push Ash and the team to be like, guys, let's have the community members are the best people to really understand what's going on with the customers, what's going on with the tech direction, the whole 9 yards, and we are here to help assist all of that. But it shouldn't never be inverted, and communities need to be able to stand alone. And there even maybe be times where you guys are like, no, this is the right thing to do, and it may not, it may conflict with some of the business model side of it. So be it. If that's the right thing to do for customers, then let's go forward with it, right? The corporation needs to react and make sure that our business model fits around where the community direction is going, not the other way around. And I think that certainly for the last several years, it's been the other way, where it's, okay, great, the DNN Corp is going in this direction. And oh, by the way, if there's some community people that can monetize along the way, good for you. Here's some segmented scraps for you, but you can't do these things. And that, I believe, is completely inverted, right? The reason you have an open source community is to drive the technical direction, drive the overall direction, and for it to be open. And then if there are different ways to monetize that along the way, whether that be a reseller or integrator or a corporation behind it, then that's great. But do that route, because that's actually how you drive massive innovation, not the other way around. And it's and you guys should be the drivers, not the drafters. And everything that we do internally is along that line. Now, that doesn't mean that there's void of leadership, because I believe that the community is the leadership, right? And the people that we have in the leadership positions in the community, that is the leadership. Obviously, there's leadership within the corporation, and we're going to continue to do our thing for monetization of our, Evoke software and things like that. But that leadership, I believe, again, is separate from the community leadership. So don't be encumbered, I guess, either by the past, or don't be encumbered by, feeling like you guys have to get permission per se. Let's talk about it. And then, 9 times out of 10, or maybe 9.5 times out of 10, we're gonna be on the same page. And then we go move forward and move on. And it's been great to see, people feel that empowerment, because we've been able to see great things happen in the community so far. And kind of people saying, hey, great, I can actually do these now. So increasing the number of pull requests, increasing the documentation that's out there, increasing the number of whatever it may be out there. And that's what we need to be able to go and drive a super robust community. Now, on the tech side of it, it's also super important for us to get our story down collectively on how we're going to connect with Microsoft and how we're going to use Microsoft and ride that train again. Because in reality, there's only so much that we can do on our own without Microsoft. I mean, the second N in our name matters, and they've got 10 million times more air cover than we could ever possibly do. So aligning our technical direction to the shit that they care about, and then drafting behind that is super, super important if we want to see another reemergence. Otherwise we'll kind of continue to bounce around. It'll be a little bit up and down here or there, but that technical direction with Microsoft matters a lot. I know that we tried a couple different things. We had a couple of discussions at the summit, and I think that there's a little bit of energy around that. But I'd say, great, let's go figure out what that end state needs to be. And then certainly I'm happy to call up whoever at Microsoft and help add more might behind it if needed.
Yeah, and to that point, Andy, Mitchell, do you want to kind of respond with some of the info?
Yeah, I mean, I guess since Sean shared it, it's not NDA, or I'm just going to assume that if the NDA was violated, he was the one that violated it, not me. Sean had a conversation with Scott Hunter in follow-up to my conversation that I had with them at MVP Summit earlier this, it was last week. Basically, there was a potential play from Microsoft where they were going to be building a bridge for web forms support, which would have made our migration to .NET Core non-existent. We wouldn't have had to do anything. Unfortunately, it looks like that is not going to get the engineering support from Microsoft. They, after evaluating the level of effort to accomplish it, told Sean that, you know what, it looks like we're not going to be able to do that. We're only going to be able to do it for Win forms, not web forms. So at that point, Sean brought up the conversation that, you know, looking for, let me pull up his email real quick. I thought he was going to hopefully have been here. So he mentioned at the end of his call, you know, that the note about having Microsoft support, you know, before doing something. Scott said he really needs more details on what that request would be, that kind of thing. So it sounds like we need to get you, Andy, talking with Scott Hunter, one way or the other. I think hopefully Sean will follow up to get that conversation going. There was apparently a bit of a additional piece just in terms of what Sean said, that there was a discussion about the demo with Sebastian. You know, I don't know, it seems like it would be good if we could take care of it, and you'd love to see, you know, our community working in the Orchard community, but I don't know, it doesn't seem like there's much of a path with it. I guess I can't comment too much on it based on what Sean had said because I wasn't there. But the piece that I knew that was covered under NDA unfortunately doesn't appear to be coming to fruition. That would have made life a lot easier for us.
Yeah, but the action item, Mitchell, is that Microsoft will not like he's wanting more details about what we want to do, and in order to do that, there needs to be a meeting between Andy and Scott.
Right.
And that was
Exactly. Yep.
The next step is to try to get you on a meeting with him.
Right.
Right. I mean, right now, I think the biggest thing from my perspective and everything is we've got a chicken and egg scenario where Microsoft is like, okay, what are you going to do? ESW, right? We need to, you know, have Microsoft buy in before we can really, you know, do stuff. Hopefully we can get you, Andy, and Scott together to kind of figure that out to see what it's going to be. I mean, I think we've got a game plan at least in some regards, so that we can really decide what happens next. But it looks like, yeah, the next piece is to figure out what the ESW Microsoft scenario looks like, because Microsoft wants to communicate through ESW from a community perspective. We're not getting that communication.
All right.
You know, I initiated it, but then everything had to go through Sean. So, you know, whatever we can do to start that and see where that goes, I'm not sure what that direction will be yet.
Sure. I'm happy to head up to Redmond at any time. So if someone wants to connect me to him, I'm happy to arrange that discussion and get the admins together and fly up there and chat. And then when that gets scheduled, we should all chat about what message the community wants me to deliver in that. Because obviously the web form to ASP.NET would have been a good one. Do we want to go push for that again? or are there things that we can actually help and do that, or do we need Microsoft to do that, or is there something else that we want to ask for? You know, I'd like for that discussion to not only be a get to know you, but it'd be great to lead there with some very specific decisions.
Right. It was unfortunate that Sean was not present in this group when we did the follow-up to the Orchard presentation, like discussions here within the group, which you know, has led to be, unfortunately, that he seems still to be on this track of like, yeah, well, maybe, you know, with Orchard we can work something out. Whereas within the group, we can't see a path forward with Orchard. Put it that way, it would we would jeopardize, or we would basically sacrifice the migration path. And building a bridge from web forms to ASP.NET Core would give us the migration path, but it wouldn't actually attract new developers, which is the other main goal, right? So we need to bring new blood into the community and get this whole thing more enthusiastic again. Well, for that we need to be on .NET Core and be running on the latest proof of concept technology of Microsoft. So yeah, I hope we can formulate a more targeted scenario for you when you meet with Scott Hunter about exactly how we think we can get out of the swamp, rather than some haphazard a plan that jeopardizes one of the two goals, basically.
Yeah, and it seemed from the email that Sean sent that Scott wants Sean to make the introduction for the meeting, so maybe we can kind of get some high-level points together before that meeting gets scheduled. So maybe that's an action item for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, Andy, we definitely appreciate your time. I mean, feel free to stay. We're not kicking you off, obviously, but if you want to sit around and listen to us talk about C# and stuff like that.
No, all good, guys. Well, look forward to Summit for sure, or to connect. And then, yeah, whenever we can connect with Scott Hunter, again, I'm happy to make it up there at any time. So.
Okay. All right. I will try to nag people to make all that happen.
All right. Sounds good, guys. All right. Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right, guys, I have started sharing my screen, and I'm just going to turn it over to Andrew, and then I'll be quiet. Andrew, I put this up front here for you so that we can discuss this before you have to jump off.
Yeah, I only got a few more minutes, and then I gotta get going, unfortunately. But I just wanted to follow up on a couple of the points that I had for the 9.3 release, which was the issues that I found in the DNN MVC platform. I ran some tests over the weekend around that, and everything appears to be working. So what I'm going to try and get done is documentation on the routing changes. And I'm doing a presentation for the Southern Fried DNN group that's going to go over all of those changes. So if I don't get at least written documentation, we'll have a video tutorial we can share from that user group that kind of goes over the new routing changes. But all of those changes are currently working in 9.2, so we don't need to do any additional pull requests.
Perfect. Quick question for you, Andrew. Do you think the MVC module pattern, as we improve it, could actually be the launching pad for the Razor Pages solution? I.e., could it just morph into that at some point? Or do you really think we need to have a new pattern that's separate from the MVC pipeline?
So that's a loaded question. It's a great question. So ideally, what I would like to see is a very lightweight Razor Pages project added to platform, and that reference the MVC project. And all we do is override the necessary components and go from there. So, we're talking maybe 4 classes inside the Razor Pages project, but keeping them separate for now, I think, is important, because there is no Razor Pages in .NET Framework. I could be persuaded to, put them together, but the way that we're handling the routing at a DNN, what's the word I want to look? I guess I could say the DNN platform router or module selector, the thing that determines if we're going to be, you know, web forms, MVC, or Razor pages, that uses reflection to pull out the appropriate assembly, and I believe it's called the action router. I'm not 100% on there, but we'll call it an action router for our discussion. So it uses that action router that will then determine, okay, I need to pull out the .mvc, or I need to pull out the .razor information from my DNN manifest file and then load my module appropriately and the assemblies with it. So that part, I'm not sure if we're going to find a clean solution to include the Razor pages along the MVC.
Keep in mind that those might be the things that we could actually trigger Microsoft on. In the sense of what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a path right out of the swamp, and this is one of the very first steps that we're going to take. And we say, well, we're going to head towards your U pattern, but we need some glue to make it work with the current solution. And they have actually helped us before in this respect. We have had special, or you know, DLLs that were supplied by Microsoft in the .NET Nuke solution that did tasks that basically prepared us for something after. So I wouldn't completely. I would look at it like, what would be ultimately the greatest way that this could work. I don't think a dumbed down module pattern is necessarily the answer, because I think any module pattern should be, let's say, very powerful, but that you should be able to use it in a very, very simple way. So you can have like a very simple to-do list module that really demonstrates what you know, how you program something simple, but allows you to completely flesh out with all kinds of routing and whatnot to kind of when it comes to life.
Right. Yeah, and the thing that I'm nervous about wrapping up the Razor pages inside the current MVC platform is there's significant changes that we had to make to how we render the view and how we pass the, you know, the page model in our case to the object, to the into the view, so we can load that data. And as we implement the on get and the on post from the Razor pages pattern that's in .NET Core, I see that adding complications. So that's why I was thinking that it would be best to open up the current DNN MVC platform for extension. So, you know, make some of the classes, make some of the methods virtual, and add the necessary extension points. So there's a section of code where we basically rip apart the controller, how we build out our controller, and set, you know, any model to go with it for the MVC pattern, and kind of force that into a Razor pages pattern. So if we could then take that and maybe encapsulate it into, you know, a virtual method or abstract method, and then override that behavior inside the Razor pages pattern. That way we have very little code, that duplicated code. And I think that would be the appropriate solution.
Okay, yeah, just good. And I think
the only thing, you know, I want to add, Microsoft has them in separate pipelines.
Yeah.
So as much as I agree, right, we don't want to go overly complex. In .NET Core, they are entirely separate middlewares, entirely separate pipelines. So I don't also want us, for the sake of it looks simpler, to smash apples and oranges together, or maybe more importantly, oranges and watermelons.
Right, and that's kind of why I started with forking the MVC platform code for Razor pages, but with under the hood, both of them are using web forms, Gus, and that's what DNN is built on. So the grand idea here is, let's build an API, and the API would be our module platforms. So let's build our module platforms that, you know, do Razor pages, that do MVC, that do whatever, and the programmer doesn't need to care about anything as long as they have access to their API methods and the things that they expect, and they, you know, they're super high level, and they don't need to worry about how we actually implement it. So then when we move over to a .NET Core solution, ideally the feature parity between the two would be identical, and you would just be able to copy over your Razor Pages module into whatever that vNext .NET Core solution is.
Okay. Fair enough.
All
right. Fair enough. But I think we should definitely one of these days have a full-on hour-long meeting probably on it as well.
Yeah. So my big question with Razor Page, and this has been really great discussion. Thanks, Mitch and Peter, for your comments and questions. But my big question is, what's the roadmap for Razor Pages? What's the deadline that we want to do stuff as is? Do we want to try and get it into 9.3, or do we want to, fix things based on the feedback from the last meeting we had the other month, where we wanted to kind of normalize the projects because we kind of got scattered? And do we want to do that and then have a discussion of the roadmap and what we want to do? And the reason why I'm asking this is kind of just a giant weight on my shoulders right now of what are we doing with it? And
all right,
I want to make sure that
last time we looked at the roadmap, it was 9.3 is already coming out beginning of May. So and 9.3 was going to include GDPR.
Right.
9.4 is going to be what's the big? Oh yeah, Persona Bar update, and then we're looking at 10, a major version release for like really new things, like content and Razor Pages. So you're not under huge time pressure here, and also I think for most of us we don't want to rush this.
Right.
We don't want to do it right.
Right, and I want to make sure that I think we all want to make sure when we do release a new module platform that it works. We don't want to end up what MVP originally was, and I've had multiple people approach me about it and saying, once you release this, my first goal is to try and break it, and I don't want them to be able to break it.
And we can release a preview or a beta for DNN10 together with 9.4, before 9.4, after 9.4, that doesn't matter. So we are more flexible if we're targeting this for DNN10.
Okay. I'm sorry, I forgot that we said that was on DNN10. I just wanted to make sure that we had that I wasn't being rushed on it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, if you're looking at kind of cadence, but this is up to Ash, of course, as well to give his input on that. But I like seeing new functionality come out, let's say, in the run-up towards events, so that these events can then benefit from having presentations on the new functionality. So we could have DNN Platform 10, for instance, coming out before Summit, so that Summit can then do some stuff, and explore this stuff more in depth.
Yeah, that would be really cool if we got it for Summit. I'd be more than happy to do several talks about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in any way, if we do it, if we have a release candidate or beta before, or this will come out soon after, or something like this, or the conference is just after release, both would be suitable. And I think we're talking about time frame of about a quarter of a year, maybe. So we are more or less flexible. We shouldn't constrain ourselves. Say, okay, there's a conference and we need to get it ready, and we need to push out a new release. This is something where we failed a couple of times, and we should avoid putting ourselves under pressure. If it's not ready, then we need to make sure it's ready for release.
Well, of course, that goes without saying. I think
I want to bring up one thing which may kind of be out of left field for some of y'all. This item right here, new theme for future release. So I was contacted, or I've been in conversations with the guys at Contreras, and they want to create a new theme for a new release, right? And they really think they can make it pop, or whatever you want to say, like come out with a good design. They're open for it being for the platform and Devote, just anything, any version. So I invited those guys to come to the meeting and to be in the group and the email was happening earlier today. Obviously they couldn't, but I don't know what version it makes sense, if it should be any of these or 10. I'm just wanting to communicate to you all that they have made that offer, and if they're taking up on it, we should let them know.
In my opinion, a new design makes sense for a new major release like we did in the past, but not with a new minor release. So it should go hand in hand, and it makes sense if it tries to implement the new technical features and also demonstrates the new enhancements for skinning at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree. Probably for 10.
Okay.
Yeah, and also for reasons of just visually, right? You see a site, oh, that's a DNN, you know. We look back on these DNNs, right? Oh, that was a DNN 5. You see it immediately.
All right, I'll just make a note here, and sorry to derail any Razor combos.
Guys, I got to drop right now. Is there any last minute questions or comments on the Razor MVC stuff we were just talking about?
The only thing, Andrew, was that you wanted to do some fixes for the next release as well.
Yeah. So I thought I mentioned. I'm sorry if I didn't. I kind of jumped the gun when I said there were bugs on it. There were issues when I tried installing one of my MVC modules into a 9.2 app or a 9.2 DNN instance, but I did some more further investigation over the weekend, and everything looks like it's working correctly in a clean 9.2 instance.
Okay, sounds good. That's very good, Andrew. But still, the stuff that you added in 9.2, does it deserve a blog? If it does, I think.
Oh, it absolutely does. And so I'm doing a code demo with the DNN user, Certified DNN user group.
Okay.
I'm gonna try and get some blogs documented out by May, but it's definitely gonna be done by the end of the spring.
Right, because I thought you were talking about the Razor pages, because that's what.
No. The first thing was the MVC stuff. So
I see.
Yeah, originally that code demo was going to be Razor pages, but I changed it last minute to do MVC stuff because it's a 9.2 and people should use it because it's really cool.
Yes, definitely plan on blogging and yeah. In the video. Looking forward to that. Sounds good. And Clint, I was muted. I just wanted to make a comment about the theme. 10 is quite ways out, right? So yeah, I agree with everybody that it should come out with a splash, but let them work on it when they're ready to. If they want to work on it right now, let them do it and have it submitted to us. When we release, that's a different question, right? At least get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the question was when should we start working on it. I think they're saying they are going to work on it. It's going to be on GitHub. It's going to be a contribution, and it's just like when could that potentially ship? Like, they don't care what release.
I do think, to be fair to our contributors and to avoid us getting into a situation that we've gotten into God knows how many times in the last 11 years, if we are intending, though, to take a contribution and not purposely include it into a later release, that needs to be communicated to them.
What do you mean not purposely include it?
Well, if we tell them, yep, we'll take it, we'll do it, but we'll include it in some release, but then we don't include it in 9.3, we don't include it in 9.4, and we hold it till 10, we're going to get right back into the same situation that we are not, processing requests or not taking contributions. So if there's a plan that it doesn't align to a particular release.
No, we could be upfront and say, look, it's going to be in 10. That's it.
Exactly. All I'm saying is they just need to be aware.
There need to be a conversation, definitely.
Yeah, and guys, I'm also thinking on the same topic. I think we need, how there is a roadmap that is on our DNN software, and I think Oliver was going to update it. I don't know if he did that or not, but that's not the point. I think we also need to have a plan for the open source contribution. There are two ways. One is when people they wanted to offer something on their own, and number two is when we actually need help, right? So we need to talk about both of those, like which areas we need help. And how can we solicit more help? As Andy said, as you heard, that he wants community to help and be part of, to lead it. So, which also means that we need to ask people for help. And how do we do that? So, I mean, this is a great roadmap, right? This is what we intend to do, but how can we divvy up the work as well?
I mean, that's not. It requires. I mean, some tasks obviously can be done by the community, but for some of the larger things, you know, it definitely requires a lot of coordination and thought on our behalf, right? So if you're saying, okay, the new module pattern, you know, I still think it needs some kind of a workforce to make sure we get this right.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to derail the meeting. We got like, what, 20 more minutes scheduled, and we got a lot of items to,
Yeah, I'd still like to add one thing about the skin and theme thing. I mean, basically, I probably, if you'd ask around, a lot of people would kind of want to contribute their theme because it feels good to be in there. So it could quickly turn into something political. Why should that they have not really done anything in the open source so far suddenly get that prominent picture? Now, it's not that I want that one, but I just think it may feel strange for other people who have been creating open source skins and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're trying to come in and say, hey, we're doing this. I think they're just trying to offer their, you know, services skills as a contribution. So it sounds like we need to figure out, like, I don't know, parameters around, you know, having a contribution.
Right, and guys, we need to also come up with a plan or to promote the modules or extensions which are not part of the core, like the one on DNN Connect. So, I mean, you know, if this could, in theory, be an item to be on the Connect as well, right? If we feel that for whatever reason we're not able to include it, then that should not discourage someone from not contributing. It will still need the same attention and the, you know, shout out on Twitter or the DNN Digest and things like that. Should we talk about GDPR now?
Yeah, I mean, it's on the list.
Okay, so I don't know how much you guys were paying attention to. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time into that, but can you unshare so I can share my screen? Or if you have the link somewhere, you can share too.
I'll unshare so you can grab.
So there is a Google Drive with a bunch of docs from the technical product manager at DNN. His name is Pavel. And there is an L2 spec somewhere. I thought I saw it. For whatever reason, it's not showing up. He's written quite a lot, and there has been some feedback. Though where my concern is right now, when I look into the scope, it's huge. And I don't know if I will have the bandwidth on the corp side to get everything done. And that's why I was kind of getting into, I think, Mitch, I noted that and you replied there, is that we need help. So all I have right now is a way to do the cookie consent. I don't know, we had written something up a few weeks back and that code is there. And we need to still talk about it, if that is the right solution or not. So this is the cookie consent that there is a way for someone to show that, hey, we are tracking you. Here's a screenshot. Right? And then, so we have code for that. I think we can have that in the platform.
I think there's already a cookie consent module from someone in the community. Did you consider integrating that?
Nobody said, is that?
There's a free one. I need to check. It's from someone from the UK. Peter, do you know from who created that one?
No, currently my mind draws a blank when you said that.
I'm quite sure there is, and I think it should be in the store, but it's for free.
Send me the link to that, and
I'll check it out. I'll send you.
Yeah, so there is also a module like that was written by an internal developer. I'm following that up to see why was that written. I don't know. I'm sure it must be something to do with GDPR. But that is implemented as an HTTP module, and it kind of intercepts the call every request and to see if we need to pop up that thing or not. So I think there are some questions here that I still not 100% myself sort of convinced that that's the right way to do it. Should we do this as a skin object? Should we do this as an HTTP module? So there are some questions here that are still open. I still need to go and review a little bit and kind of discuss with you guys here. But you're more than welcome to come into this folder and take a look and give your feedback. But I mean, regardless, the scope, as I can see, is actually huge. And without taking a lot of your time, what I'm going to do now is to kind of take a look and sort of work with the community to see who can help, right? I think we're talking about writing a schedule job for data export. We're talking about writing a schedule job to deletion. We're talking about writing an interface for the modules to participate. What do you guys think about? Do we need to go into all that details and get what is the absolute minimum that we think is necessary to say that we're okay with GDPR?
I already said, wrote down before there are a couple of items where we can simply provide some kind of instruction for an admin. And I think the simpler it is for an admin to follow a receipt, the easier we can postpone, or we can simply neglect this item and say, okay, this is, or even put a sentence on these instructions into our cookie into our GDPR module, or section in the persona bar. Where it's easy to implement, we should. Where it's easier to describe how to work around, it might be the easier option. It's better than not providing anything.
No, I understand. Yeah. So, I think the GDPR guys have done a great job spreading the word. And the question is, do we, like, everybody's resource is precious, right? Including DNN Corp, your time. Is it worthwhile to spend a lot of effort into writing a scheduled task, testing it, downloading it, building an interface, asking module developers to implement that interface? It's almost like a import-export, like iPortable type of thing. Would there be adoption? Is it worth it? So I'm gonna look into it as well, and maybe speak about it a little bit next week too.
Yeah, I think one of the things to think about too is looking at the competing products that are out there. They are implementing turnkey solutions for developers in their platforms, or have already. So, I have to look at, how much time we can contribute in terms of development, but a solution that doesn't address some of the critical things, such as allowing a module to provide its content for that extraction, that will become a key marketing point for the competition that says, we do this, DNN and Evoke don't do that. Just as something to think about, that what these others are doing and how they've been implementing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't disagree. So I think that's why I was trying to get into this conversation earlier, was that I think we need so it's one thing is that, Sebastian, you wanted to offer your SQL, Oliver wants to offer his stuff, which is all great. Mm-hmm. But I think we also need to ship out some work to the community, which are higher priority than those. Yeah. So how do we do that? I think, Mitch, you offered to help. I think.
Well, if you're saying that time is running out to get the GDPR done before the end of May, I think you're also saying we should focus on that to make sure we get as much of that in there before the end of May, and not be too distracted by other things. So we prioritize GDPR.
Yeah, the minimum that is needed, right? The minimum set that is needed to be compliant with GDPR. Although,
exactly.
Yeah, in reality, like, will people be coming out after? Well, in theory, you could have a very large site running DNN.
Well, it's and there's Well, there's more. Like Mitch alluded to as well. I mean, it's part of your pitch, and certainly at DNN Connect, we're going to have 2 sessions about GDPR. In my estimation, there are people walking around. We have been asked as an organizing committee about this, like, hey, do you do something with GDPR? Obviously, it's the theme out here. To be able to show something, I think, is very, very valuable. And to see that we're on top of this, I think, is very, very valuable.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. So, I think in general, when we, as a group, not only as a core, but as a community now, it's all kind of coming together, right? So we should look into things when we think about adding a lot of effort, what would move the needle?
Right. So, for instance, like indeed, that export, I mean, again, I don't have a full list. This is the full list of changes that are required that I'm looking at?
Yeah, I think so.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So the data, what was it again? The account export, for instance, is something that I don't mind sinking my teeth in as a module developer. I'm used to how this stuff works. But yeah, we choose intelligently which ones we think are doable before the end of May. Right. And get the right people on board for that.
So and I think the most or by far biggest one is the account export module. And this, in my opinion, as far as I need to read again, but I'm not sure whether this is a basic requirement from GDPR. So we might put it as this on later, or ask people to contribute as free module or whatever. It's not necessarily something which needs to be included.
No, but there's something else that is also to consider here, which is if you implement an interface that the module needs to implement for it to be because this tags heavily into the extension things, and then it's you also want to you immediately want to stick to major versions, right? So you say, okay, what's the 9.4 introduced this interface. Not 941 or whatever. Also, it's something that you have to then the sooner you get the interface in, because it's gonna take years before modules actually implement it, right? Before they actually start building on top of 9.3. So for me, the sooner that the interface is there, the better. In terms of, for instance, how the UI actually works for it, you can rush that, in my opinion. But technically, to have the actual export possible, I think is it needs to be thought out too early.
I'd like to add something here from our side, because we've been investing quite a lot of time into this topic, because we have around 500 customers, which we knew are going to flood us otherwise with questions. And the way I see it, actually, in reality, a lot of the questions have to do with processes and not even with technical implementation. So in other words, I'm almost certain the most important thing is going to be to provide content, checklists, whatever, so that people actually have an idea what to do. Because basically, you can be GDPR compliant without actually having to update any DNN if you have a process in place to get the data. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's always a technical side which will make things easier, but in reality, the lawmakers in Germany and stuff are going to focus on the big fish first to kind of make like a showdown in court to make sure that this is really taken seriously. And they're not going to go after the small guys, but the small guys just need to feel safe that they can handle it if any questions would pop up. And these are process questions, not technical questions.
So that's a very good point. Very good point, Daniel. So this brings a question. Do we need to bother doing anything? I mean, I know we was invested in the time writing spec
it is a big subject in the EU currently. So if we do something and provide at least aggregate information how to handle the requirements with your DNN, and maybe put together some of the stuff we need, like being able to edit terms of use and a privacy statement, and being able to have an additional option in your within your user profile where people need to agree to the terms that, and the privacy would really feel a lot of our users safe, and tell them that we care about it and consider maybe further improvement, but they get safe with DNN, and I think that's currently very important.
Mm-hmm.
So we do need something, but maybe not the full solution until end of May.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we want to keep DNN competitive with other platforms, if we want to be able to be that, be that platform that we've been, I think we need a solution. A temporary workaround with a, hey, we don't have the time to get something by, the May deadline. Here's how you can manage it. I think that would be okay, but I think we would be having a real big miss to the community if we didn't actually do it, because I know that our competition is and will start the marketing fever that they are better than DNN because they have a solution.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Mm-hmm. But I really think we need to evaluate, and I volunteer to take care of it, which of these parts are necessary, which we might postpone, which are not required by GDPR. Because in my opinion, maybe Mitch, you know better, but as far as I know, this export audio account is not a necessary requirement by GDPR.
Well, the ability to get access to your information is part of GDPR. That's the whole take your stuff with you. The concern in the people that we've talked to with that one specifically is that that's the one thing that people are actually aware of, because that's the big thing that Facebook is doing, that the New York Times caught on to, that kind of thing. So that, I mean, for me, that's the big holy grail that can, some of the consent and accepting terms of use. The people that really care about some of that stuff have already been doing other things.
And it's technically, it's not very difficult.
No. I mean, I think that the profile changes and privacy terms and things like that are probably harder than an export process.
Right.
Just because all of those other changes are hitting areas that we have to take all of the things that we take into every release into consideration, performance impact to the, impact to the site as a whole, that kind of thing, where a user export, even if it's a little bit inefficient, et cetera, yes, there's an interface for third-party module vendors, but even if we can't deliver that spec until the day, technically we've done it. I mean, we could try to communicate to the module vendors ahead of time so that they could get ready. Okay. But, I mean, it's just like we released 9.2 that broke 3/4 of the world. So it's not, if that was okay, releasing an interface that they can't code against until then, I don't think is a huge break with the gain that we get from it.
So, I mean, we have iPortable, right? So it's going to be at a user level. That's at a module instance level. This is going to be a
Yeah, but it's just a question, exactly. But it's just a question of how you, indeed, we've done this kind of trick before. So technically, an account export shouldn't.
It's a current export interface with an additional parameter user, isn't it?
Right. So
yeah.
So guys, I think I need some development time. I think that's what it comes down to actually get it done. I have some code that's already done. I don't know how much more I can offer in terms of development resources on this one right now. I have the consent, the cookie consent done, and then I need like dev time. I'm not opposed to not doing it or something.
Yeah, but I mean, just one more point from my side. I mean, let's look at a real case scenario. Let's say somebody would want to sue DNN Corp, right? Basically, to be able to provide what you have to promise, because the law will extend all the way to the US, is you'd have to be able to export anything they ever wrote into any forum or any comment they added to any blog. And that's the volume you'd have to export. Just exporting their profile would not comply with GDPR.
Right.
Right. So as long as there is a manual way, if someone asks, summons you, and you're able to give that's okay.
Wait, Daniel. We were not saying that just exporting a profile was going to be the solution. What we're saying is that we would implement an interface. We would have an interface more or less akin to the iPortable interface that allows you to grab a user's data. And just like iPortable, the result of that will then be fed into a larger whole, let's say, and all of that can be pumped out over the line to the user. That would give the user a complete download of everything, of all the data concerning that user, provided the modules follow suit, right? So provided the modules actually do this. Now, of course, that last part is not up to us. That's not our job. Our job is to offer the best possible tooling for module developers to adhere to this.
Yeah. But I mean, to put it this way, technically speaking, right, end of May is the deadline. So basically, on the 1st of June, somebody could go up to DNN Corp and say, if you don't get me my data, I'm going to sue you. Now, I'm just going to take DNN Corp as an example because that's real life, right? You cannot update, and even if you update, there's going to be a lot of data which is not going to be in any way exportable automatically, and probably not for at least another 12 months. And
right, but I think that's two discussions here, because your approach has been your approach is what are we legally required to do, and what Mitch is arguing is what would keep our platform up to date and something that we can sell. I think those are two different criteria. And I appreciate, I think it's clear that indeed legally we might not even be in that hot water, but I agree with Mitch that we have to show to our audience that we are reacting to this and we are putting mechanisms in place, which means that our platform will adapt to this.
So I completely agree with that too, by the way. The point I'm trying to say is that if we want to help our community, we need to be able to give them like a guideline what they can do if they cannot update it right now, which, I mean, they need content instructions how to handle their legal requirement today, because basically the technical solution will not help them comply for a long time.
I hope that Sebastian will do a presentation on GDPR at DNN Connect, where he will actually delve into this. We are videotaping all of the presentations, and they would be made available on YouTube as well.
Which is technically speaking, that's actually after the deadline. So if anybody's worried about that, because we all have customers to consult, right? So if our customers ask us, we're kind of under pressure before end of May to provide at least answers that it can be done.
But Daniel, it sounds like you already did something. Can you provide us with can you upload your guidelines to our Google Drive so I can review it, and maybe we can create some blog posts or create some assistance for the DNN community from DNN software.
Yeah, I don't have that
material. We really have.
We have a lot of German blog posts, but that won't help this team. And the blog
help me. I can translate it if necessary. I try to summarize or whatever. I already did a couple of things I put together lots of requirements, but of course I need help from you. And if you have something, I do understand German more or less. It should be possible for me, and I can add it on, and I can consider how to present it to the community. Would that be fair? You can cooperate as you like.
Yeah. Well, how about we hook up directly, and we'll discuss about that part. Our stuff, by the way, is not technical, and of course, in the DNN community.
No, it shouldn't. It's not, of course, I created something for what DNN should do, but or what's necessary, how it should look like in the in DNN. But of course, I also wrote that there's a lot of process behind and what's necessary. And of course, if you can instruct our administrators, our users, how to provide it on their websites, either with or without DNN changes, that would be helpful.
Yep. Yeah, and I think I guess I'd like to kind of be involved in that conversation too, right? Because it was asked of me to help write a blog post about what we're doing for GDPR, and having talked through our customers, yeah, there's workarounds and temporary. You're not going to get the total book thrown at you solutions right now. But some of the tenets of GDPR, such as getting the confirmation of the privacy policy, that they've actually opted into you using their data, that kind of thing, there's not a retroactive way to do that anyway. So the real key is having that there, and the solution that's architected right now in the specs that were created would allow somebody to be basically to be compliant from that day forward, because the next time that individual logs in, it would get their consent. So I agree we need to provide communication and ways for people that can't upgrade, but you're not in any way, without doing a core modification or using a third-party module, going to be able to comply fully on a prior version.
Yes, but Mitch, of course, we already have a couple of sites, and I know lots of users who have sites where the people had already to agree on terms of use, and we need to, like this, the screen is shown here, and of course, we need to consider how this works if you upgrade your site. This will be the next step, and this is not something. This is something you need either before 9.3 or after 9.3. And of course we can say, okay, you need your users simply to accept your guidelines. You need to provide some kind of an option for them to gather their data, either via a form where they request it from the admin, or they have an automatic way. We simply need to provide a checklist, and there's something. There are a lot of things together with GDPR. Which are not technically solved, like users need to have a process, our websites, so the site owners need to have a process of, and they need to have persons responsible for data protection who are really in a special job, and something like this, which is nothing we can support in technically within DNN platforms. This is something people need to be aware of, and then if they do business with clients from EU.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this form, they're suggesting here to put a checkbox here, but as I know, this form itself is pretty dynamic, right? So
yes,
there are open questions around it.
Yes, it's dynamic, and the question is whether they needed to do on registration or on first login. Currently we have this option with a
profile option. Property, right?
Yeah, with the profile properties, whether you need a valid profile upon registration or on login. I think both is fine, and login is easier because if you have an update, this is definitely something which is new. Mitch, if you want to get a history, when did people agree to the terms of use, the first time, the last time, or whatever, this makes it even more complex, of course. But if you can start at least to tell when they did agree on last time on terms of use, it helps most of the users. And this is, of course, something which could be stored in the DNN profile, but currently it isn't. because all profile properties gets the last updated flag whenever the user profile is any profile property is updated.
Right.
So that's part of the improvements, or it could be part of the improvements I'm doing for user profile, because then we get more accurate.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary, of course.
It's not necessary for this particular one. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
But
it seems like profile property is the right thing to use here, because that gives the dynamic and enforcement as well. We don't have to build anything.
Yes.
Okay.
I can even I think we should. I could provide you a SQL statement where you simply add it, but I think for existing sites, I would prefer to have an instruction how to add this profile property instead of adding it automatically, because some people might already have something like this, and then you have two options: I agree to the terms, and they have a second one: I agree to a term to terms of site, and people don't know what, and admins don't notice, and they get in trouble.
Yeah, so I need to review this a little bit more, guys. So I think I'm not ready to discuss the final plan, probably next week.
Okay. If you want to discuss something in between, I will be available all the next day.
And Daniel and Mitch, I think we don't necessarily have to wait for the final solution to be out. If you guys have information that you can share in a blog post about general practices, I think that would still be valuable. Like even those who do not upgrade, for example, to 9.3, what can they do?
Yeah, because basically a lot of it has to do with, it's almost like any kind of a governance topic. Basically, you need to have a plan of what you're doing, and it should be documented. So if anybody questions your capabilities, you have to be able to say, yes, I did it, and here are the papers. Because same thing, I mean, technically there's nothing guaranteeing that what you export is ever going to be 100% correct. And even if it isn't, if you had a process in place and it just missed something, it's like legally not a big deal. But if you didn't have a process in place and you missed something, then of course it's going to be terrible.
So Dan, I would love for you to talk about that in a blog if you could. I mean, I think this is a time where we can show some thought leadership from the community as a DNN as a whole.
Yeah, I'd love to write. I'm a little short on resources right now. I'm doing night shifts for weeks on end, but I'll see what I can do.
Okay. I'll stop sharing. So how are we doing time-wise?
Yeah. Well, kind of ran out of time.
Okay. That's some time. What else do we want to talk? So guys, on the .NET side, .NET Core side, my suggestion, we need to think of what we need to tell Andy to talk to them. Do you think we should ask for a resource, a program manager, for a three month or something like that?
And that was my proposition right from the start. It's like I think the path that we're seeing out of the swamp is viable, but it needs validation from Microsoft, and we need some guidance on the details of how we do it. But I think from a very, very high up perspective, the move that we came up with, saying, okay, well, first we're going to make the module that is the module of the future kind of run on our current rendering engine, and then we're going to, just like .NET Core, basically introduce new libraries that will be .NET Core compliant, and that will slowly suck up what we want to preserve and clean up the API. And then finally a move where we deprecate web forms.
Right. So I guess in terms of a little bit more action oriented, maybe Clint, because you organize all of these things, does it make sense to have a Google Doc going as to what we need Andy and Scott Hunter to talk about, like very specific, so that we can collaborate?
I can create that. Yeah,
if we could share that on our channel.
Right.
That way, at least this thing moves.
All right. one thing I want to mention here, I got this item, Site Improved to present at a future meeting. So if you guys are not familiar with Site Improved, they are big into accessibility, like ADA compliance. And they recently came out with an extension, a module that's on the store. You can plug it in to DNN, and then eventually they, are trying to get you to become their customer. But it is a very good module for accessibility. Anyway, the guy's been knocking my door down and knocking Ash's door down, wanting to know how they can help and get involved. And so they are interested in like joining this meeting at an upcoming meeting and just kind of talking to us about potential avenues for maybe putting something into the core of their functionality. Now that's not up to me whether they do that or not. It's up to the group here. So I'm just asking y'all, is that something that you would like to give a portion of time of our meeting to?
Yeah, but not before the next, not within the next 2 weeks, I think, because we have a lot on our list we need to discuss first, and we need to discuss for 930 and 940, and I'd like to get it. Not that they put open up too many construction areas at the same time.
All right, so we could shoot for maybe May 15th. That would give us time, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And Peter, what do you think? We could try to get Catherine Catherine Moss to this discussion. She's blind, and so she knows very well what are the requirements from the user side.
No. Yeah.
She's active in our Facebook group, and I think that could be she could be a valuable contribution to this group when we're talking about the subject.
Yeah, I also have a blind employee that works at the company I work at here. I've worked with on some screen reader software, but she might have some insight on some things too.
And it would help if we get something to read up front, so we are a little bit in the subject, not getting into the deep water when they present something. I think it's easier for us to understand what they're presenting.
Yeah. Good.
We can gear up the discussion a little faster.
I mean, did they give any detail on what they want out of this group?
No, I mean, the way I understood it was like they almost want to pitch us on something to put into the core, and then.
Okay. Because maybe as I'm asking, I know them pretty well, and I talk to them like 6 times a week at this point. So they're big on selling licenses. If it's to help us do better with ADA compliance for this group, then I think it's great. But if it's a sales pitch, I think we have way too much other stuff going on in this group right now.
For a sales pitch, we will have a slot somewhere in December, I believe.
Yeah.
Of 2020.
2020, exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm really not sure exactly what it is, other than they're trying to.
That's why I asked.
So this, I can tell Clint, I think he's reached out to me earlier as well. It's going to be a sales pitch. It's going to be a sales pitch. I think what we really need is a champion who can help us guide through ADA. If he wants to do that and also gain some credibility, which will eventually help in monetization later, then that would be something we would want to do. But if the whole purpose here is to, hey, this is a cool tool that we built, would you like to buy? Then I think that's not a discussion. But regardless, I mean, I think it would still help to see what he has done through the tool. Wouldn't it? Like for us to know what lies ahead, what needs to be done, the work that needs to be done.
Maybe we can schedule an extra event, extra meeting out of the band where we can discuss with it.
He is a domain expert. I think his motivation is to sell, but he is a domain expert.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
We don't want to get into a situation where, like with 51 degrees, we have false expectations back and forth.
I agree. And by the way, we're still trying to sort out 51 degrees. Okay.
Yeah, all right. So I'll talk with this guy about that. Ash, do you want to discuss the auditing of extensions on the store?
Yeah, so I don't know, we're running out of time, but I think we have had some security issues with a couple of extensions. Was it DNN Go? Yeah, the DNN Go modules, and at DNN Corp, we worked with them like 10, 15 rounds, maybe looking into their modules back and forth. We're finally able to say that it looked good, but then we found one more thing, and we said we can't spend any more time with you. We've been working with them for like 6 months or 9 months, or whenever the first one happened. And then another module vendor had a vulnerability, and we said we don't have resources to spend on auditing it. So what I was proposing is that, again, this is a monetization avenue for people here in this group or others, is to build a group, and we say that you go to this group, you pay whether it's a voluntary service or a paid or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's an opportunity to have a group built that can charge. It's outside of DNN Corp. You can establish something like that and say that this is vetted by X, Y, and Z, and that's the credibility that they can use to put the extension on the store that they've got this additional certification. So this is something we can talk about. There is an avenue.
Right. Is it just that they didn't know how to make DNN modules?
Who?
DNN Go. I mean, how did they get into this mess? How?
Right now, we've got like 3 or 4 modules that are out there.
Majority of the ones that we've dealt with, they have copy pasted. Every module have copy pasted the same file upload from somewhere, and they're all vulnerable.
All right, so third-party integration gone
right,
wrong.
and then XSS.
That and a total complete lack of any programming skill whatsoever.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, it sounds to me.
There is a need to have a body built.
Yeah.
Right. To have an organization built, whether it's a voluntary, is it I don't know, is it like a DNN Summit type of thing, DNN Connect type of thing. Non-for-profit, for-profit.
I remember when we did this for the so-called core modules years ago, and I was in charge of it, and it was more or less just formal reviews, and it was really a hard job and a hard discussion. So I don't really see a big business on that.
Well, I think
so commercially it will be very, very hard unless you have a couple of modules which are paying very well. This is a lot of effort, and like you did, Ash, with your company, even if you could charge, I think you would like to spend your resources better with other subjects.
I agree. Yeah.
But I would pitch one thing, right? There's a way to do it at a basic level incredibly cheaply. Okay. We found a security vulnerability in the DNN blog module about a year ago. We've found a number of security vulnerabilities in a number of different modules over the years, just by the basis of having a license to a security scanning tool that would go out and do things. It's not line-by-line code reviews, right? But at least it's an automated verification against the big stuff, cross-site scripting and request forgery, that kind of stuff, right? The problem is those tools cost money, right? The one that we use is $3,000 per year for a domain. So even if we could do something where we pooled together that we could take a person's module, drop that module on a page, rescan the installation, and be able to identify it there, we're at least doing something better than what we've been doing before. I think it warrants a conversation, though, because there's some legal ramifications in terms of, if you say this was good and then you miss something, which is part of the reason why we are really careful with what we do. But I think there is a way, even if you did a testing service, kind of like EVS, that is very basic and doing a outside remote scan going against certain things, such as cross-site scripting, we'd at least raise that base. It would have caught all of the things that were a big deal last year. Because I know that 3 of the issues.
You think so? Does it install and do the test? Or?
You would have to, the thing that we don't have right now is you'd have to install the module, drop it on the page. But,
Right, but
it goes hunting for everything, and it caught the file upload stuff. It also caught 4 vulnerabilities that DNN Sharp kind of silently fixed without telling anybody, and a few other things.
do you have to record the clicks, or does it automatically?
It's fully automated. So if it's something deep inside, like an admin function, your admin functions may still be, and it really focuses on the most egregious, the straight up, you can't log in, or you can do it from the outside. And you can go further with it, but there are ways to do it. And I think that we need it to be more of a security review rather than what the historical reviews were for coding, oh, this is the code format, et cetera. We have EVS to do a lot of that stuff now. If anybody's interested in starting a conversation, I would love to start a conversation about how we do it. I just know if we do it US based, we have to be really careful. I will also just say to this group, the module vendors don't want to pay.
No,
I've conversed with DNN Go about helping them to get things squared away because I have a large number of clients that want to still use their stuff.
Right.
And the budget, they don't have the budget to pay.
I mean, let's be brutally honest. You currently, in the current climate, you're not making much money off module sales. So there is no budget there. Basically, you're hunting for cash in Africa, basically, right? Going like, oh, I have this wonderful service. Yeah, well, good luck with that. Either it's something that DNN Corp can offer as some package together with the store, or you're going to just have to point people in the right direction, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ESW has a security scanning software. I can't remember, they have some kind of license. I have to go back and check. Perhaps there is an opportunity to integrate with that. But someone needs to work on EVS. EVS is not open source. I think that's another conversation we need to have.
Yeah.
Whether the EVS should be open
source.
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be great if we could do it inside of EVS, but I was just using EVS as an example. I think we could, there's some stuff that we could do there. I think it would benefit the community quite a bit. But it doesn't come without things. I mean, honestly, and Ash, maybe this is a question for ESW. Would there be support from ESW to create a community group that would do this service, but we have our overhead covered by ESW? For example, getting us a yearly license to a security scanning tool and a hosting facility, a website to host it with. We're then still responsible for managing. That would at least lower the barrier of entry.
Yeah, let me find out about the tool, because I do know that there is an enterprise license for some security tool, and maybe there is an opportunity to somehow hook into that. So I'll find out. Okay.
All right.
All right. Push other topics for the next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You want to move these to next? All right. I will create a new one and add those. Move them over. Appreciate everybody's time. Anybody got any final thoughts before we adjourn?
No, that's good.
Is Sean ever going to come back to these meetings?
That's a great question.
I mean, otherwise we need to figure out someone else to lead this group.
Agreed.
I agree.
I mean, I guess we can vote. I don't know.
That's right.
And I did reach out to Sean, but he hadn't responded to me yet. So,
I mean, I agree 100%, and I think we should do something. I think we need to let him get away with it just a little bit longer until we get this Microsoft thing done.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that after that, we really need to vote off an island or something so we can do something. But
I mean, I don't
since
know.
Microsoft won't talk to anybody but him,
right?
gotta milk that.
Well, I mean, I definitely hope he will stay part of the group. It just might not be his. I don't get the feeling that he currently aspires to be the group lead. Like he doesn't apparently get that much pleasure from it that he, or can't find the time to run it currently. Now that might change in the near future. I don't know. He's been on holiday as well, right? For at least one of those sessions. So indeed, I'd like to cut him some slack, but as soon as we get some clarity about how we go forward, I'd also like to see the renaming of this group and start calling it the core team, because that's effectively what we are. And that's not just for our own pleasure, but it's to me, I think it sends a signal to third parties out there that this is the group that decides the roadmap. And if there are any questions, this is the group to hold accountable about that.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Sean's schedule is, but it'd be nice if he could make it to more often than not.
Right.
I think we need him as a missionary towards Microsoft, right? And I think he also understands that that's his role, but I think he wouldn't be unhappy if he knew the rest was not on his shoulders.
Right.
Who could talk to him about that?
He's not keen, I think, on leading this group. He is keen. I think we should utilize him as a face of DNN, which he still is, and as an ambassador. And we need to organize ourselves, of course, without putting the weight on his shoulders, because it won't work.
I think so.
We need to organize ourselves, and we should discuss this, continue to discuss this, and maybe discuss rename, and maybe slightly or that directly. That's
we can. Let's first see if we can reach out to him and get him to reply to that. And I know I have anyway, but some of the other, maybe Clint can do that. And then, I don't know, one of the next few meetings we can discuss that.
All right.
No, some other really core team. I mean, that's the international term for just the group that decides shit.
Okay, time is like over.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just leaving the door open for conversation.
Oh yeah. I was going to be very specific in my suggestion.
But the question is how the other teams will deal with it.
No, I mean, I mean, as part of someone from the other team, I've noticed also that our work kind of hinges on what this team does. So I don't see a point why this should be an advisory group. I think this should just be called the core team. And then even though some of you might find this a nonsensical discussion just about nomenclature, I think it does send a signal to the rest of the community that this is where it actually happens, and it will help drive Andy's point home that the community is back in charge.
I agree. I think it's if we are this group which are doing the decisions, and it should be clear, and it will help others as well.
Right. Exactly.
Gotcha. All right, guys. We appreciate it. I will render this and get this posted on the site. And we'll see y'all next week.
See y'all next week. All right. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Bye.